Stewart Fulton here in Japan, sending you the best news, reviews, previews, interviews, all the views from the land of the rising sun, pro wrestling, pro grappling, kickboxing, mixed martial arts, and especially a focus on those who are responsible for releasing the Kraken. This is Kraken Chronicles. Stewart Fulton in Japan with the next episode in the podcast that unleashes the beast, brings out the inner warrior, the switch that can change an athlete's dream to reality in an instant. And my guest today is a pro wrestler from the US of A, now in Japan, wrestling for Pro Wrestling Noah, and one half of the GHC Tag Team Championship holders, The Alternative, AG, Anthony Greene. Anthony, welcome to Kraken Chronicles. And first up, what makes you the best thing in wrestling?
Oh, what makes me the best thing in wrestling? So I'll admit, it definitely just started as a catchy moniker that was actually given to me by Max Caster of AEW. And then it was just a matter of me like believing in it. Like for a while, I think in wrestling you always hear fake it till you make it. You have to find the confidence when you get in the ring. And then once I started believing I truly was the best thing in wrestling, and that is not only because I have a unique repertoire in the ring, that's not because I speak well on the mic. I think it's just the entire package of the alternative Anthony Greene or the mofo Anthony Greene in one that makes me that damn good when I step foot in that ring.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Again, thank you for joining us today. Just before we get into the meat of things, briefly tell us about the first time you realized wrestling was for you.
Oh, man. So I couldn't tell you the exact moment I became a wrestling fan, but I remember being like 3 or 4 years old and getting the old WCW San Francisco Toy Company action figures for Christmas. Getting Hulk Hogan, Vader, Alex Wright, Jimmy Hart, Sting, getting those toys and just playing with them all Christmas morning, all night. And then I think I was just hooked from then on. But I knew that I could become a pro wrestler after watching the first season of Tough Enough, watching Maven go from not a pro wrestler to becoming a WWE superstar, and seeing that as a 7-year-old kid made me think, oh, if this third grade teacher could do this, so could I.
And you did very well.
I sure did.
You've had a great career so far, and it's still growing the way I see it. But take us back to 2022, and what you were doing leading up to the call to Pro Wrestling Noah, and how you felt once that was all set and you were heading out Japan to wrestle that summer.
So I actually knew that I would be wrestling in Japan for Noah the year before that, in June, July-ish 2021. I got released of my WWE contract, and there was another person that worked at the Performance Center as a talent that asked me what I wanted to do after WWE, and I told him my goal is to go to Japan, and he asked, what company did you want to wrestle for? And I told him Pro Wrestling Noah, and he got me connected with the right people that basically made it happen. So due to obviously COVID and the country not allowing new visas or anything at the time, it took over a year to finally get me there. So during that second half of 2021 and 2020 and first half of 2022, I was really just training and focusing on getting here. But I knew that entire time, for that 1 year time span, that at some point I was going to be coming here.
And then when you're heading out here, what's going through your mind heading out to Japan for the first time?
So Japan has been one of my two biggest goals. My goals were to wrestle for the WWE and wrestle in Japan. So I was mind blown, and I wasn't sure if this was going to end up being what it is now, where I'm practically living here or doing very long extended stays. I thought it may have just been like a one and done. It was meant to be a 2 week tour, which turned into 8 weeks, and it ended up with me wrestling in the N1 victory. But I was so, especially that first match. So we landed on a Saturday. It was July 9th we landed, and we were told due to a wrestler being absent that the card changed around a little bit and they needed another match. So they added myself and Stallion Rogers to face each other in both of our Pro Wrestling Noah debuts.
Yeah, that was a wild summer, that. And coming out to Japan, in the summer, it's summers here, as you know, are quite special. It might sound a bit cliched, but what was your first impression of Japan? Because like you, I'm not from a place like this, and when you come out here, everything's different. I mean, almost everything. What was your first impression, and how do you feel about it now?
So initially getting in the country, like I guess I would say that second day in the country. The first day I just traveled to an event and then traveled back, um, and had my first Torekezoku experience. But the next day is when I guess I started like the training and visiting different areas of Saitama and sightseeing a bit. So I immediately fell in love with the culture, but also it was a real culture shock because I don't speak the language. So it was, I won't say it was love hate because it was definitely a lot more love, but it was definitely a situation where I was like confused at times or I didn't know what to do or didn't know what to say. For example, going to the supermarket for the first time, I didn't know as I'm checking out, the first thing they're going to ask me is, "Do you need a bag?" So what do I do? What do I say? Bag, please. Like, and just I also find that everyone here is so helpful, and they're going to go out of their way and bend over backwards to make sure that like I understand what's going on when it should be me trying to bend over backwards for them because I'm in their country. Um, but yeah, it just the people here are amazing. The food here is amazing, and I just think overall the culture is incredible.
I had a similar experience as yourself with the supermarket. The first time I went shopping, I went to buy butter and I came home with cream cheese. Couldn't read the label. But these are some of the small funny things about living out here. Okay, now we talked about the N1 briefly there. Like your championship tag team partner Jack Morris, you pretty much went straight into the famous N1 Victory Tournament back in 2022, which is like a baptism of fire out here in Japan. How was that time? Basically, the whole of August, you're wrestling singles matches and other matches, going up against the likes of Masato Tanaka, Goshi Ozaki, Kazuyuki Fujita, Keno, and more. Take us through that, the emotions and how you felt physically and mentally.
So, I don't think it's much of a secret, but one of my favorite Japanese wrestlers of all time is Go Shiozaki. And I don't think on that first tour I ever told him that. Um, but being able to step in the ring with him was truly an honor. And just that entire tournament, I think I posted it on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it after it happened. And for 7 matches straight, I got to wrestle 7 of the best wrestlers in the entire world. Masato Tanaka is someone I grew up watching because of ECW and then watching him in FMW and then, purchasing 01 DVDs back in the day. As I mentioned, Go Shiozaki and watching his stuff I was most familiar with his stuff actually in America. He lived in America for just about a year training under Harley Race. So I watched him in Ring of Honor and watched him wrestle in FIP, and then obviously watched his stuff in Pro Wrestling Noah. Fujita, one of the scariest humans you could ever possibly stand across from the ring from. Keno was the GHC champion at the time. I got to wrestle Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr. That was our first meeting. Basically, every single person that I wrestled in that tournament, I didn't wrestle them in multi-mans or tag matches beforehand. This was my very first meeting with every single one of those people. So it was incredible, and it was definitely a style change because the previous month, other than my debut match, I was only doing tag matches or 6-man tags, or I think that was it. It was mostly 6-mans and tags during that time. And then to kind of get, as you said, like the baptism by fire, just kind of get like trial by fire and get thrown into wrestling Masato Tanaka in the first round, or the first match of the A block. And then the next night I was wrestling Go Shiozaki. So two completely different wrestlers that both hit incredibly hard. But yeah, man, like I feel like I'm talking in circles a little bit, but it was just such a great experience that I don't know if I can put it into just one sentence or one paragraph about how cool it was that my Pro Wrestling Noah debut tour was being a part of the N1 victory.
Yeah, it's something for the grandkids, that's for sure. What an amazing time! Even for me, thinking back to calling those matches, it was wonderful. The N1 victory is always great, but to see you guys and new faces coming and tearing it up, it was really great.
Yeah.
Now, let's get down to business. Take us back in your career. Take us back to the first time you felt you fully released the Kraken as a pro wrestler. Where were you and what went down?
So I feel like my version of releasing the Kraken is going to be a lot different than other answers you're going to hear. Um, I'm not sure if you've heard me say this in other like backstage interviews or anything, but I truly believe that I have one of the highest pro wrestling IQs, and that is in the ring and outside of the ring. So sometimes when I lack in power, I have to use my brain. And on this specific night, on March 16th, 316, Stone Cold Steve Austin Day, in Queens, New York at La Boom, is when I officially released the Kraken. The event was Evolve Wrestling. It was my second time wrestling for Evolve. I actually got booked for the event the morning of. I got an email from Gabe Sapolsky at 3 a.m. I didn't see it till 7. I already had another event that day, and I actually, terrible, I don't suggest anyone do this, canceled on that event for the opportunity to wrestle for Evolve because it was such a big independent wrestling company and it had the connection with the WWE. So I took that booking and I traveled down to New York City to do this match. I was in a fatal 4-way, and I noticed during the match there was a balloon in the ceiling because La Boom is a nightclub. So I don't know if they were celebrating a birthday earlier the night before, or what the case may have been. But I saw a balloon. And I decided while I did my walk and talk and flying crossbody that I grabbed the balloon. I did the crossbody, and the next thing I did was saw my opponent on the outside, and I did a suicide dive with the balloon still in my hands. And then I handed it to a person in the front row, raised my arms, and in front of over 400 people, got a standing ovation. That moment right there, where I believe I quote unquote released the Kraken, is what ended up getting me hired by Evolve Wrestling, which is what ended up getting me signed by the WWE, which in turn got me right here, sitting in front of you in Japan.
Wow, what a story! Yeah, that is a very interesting releasing of the Kraken and a huge milestone and turning point for you.
It really was.
Yeah, that's just beautiful, man. Now, Finally, we really want to hear about that auspicious day in Nagoya, September 2023, when you and Jack Morris stopped the Wild Men and the then GHC Tag Team Champions, Saxon Huxley and Timothy Thatcher. You well and truly released the Kraken that day too, and it was something beautiful. Please tell us about your mindset going into something like that, where it's make or break, and you know you've got your man beside you, Jack Morris.
So I said it in the press conference leading up to that match that I felt a lot of pressure going into it. And I felt pressure from Jack because I didn't want to let him down as my tag team partner. If I fail, he fails. If he fails, I fail. Like we're a tag team. We kind of have to make sure we're both on the same page. But the pressure was really on myself more than anything. But as I said before, when I'm under pressure is actually when I'm like at my best. And I think the pressure of wrestling for the GHC tag titles, and I'm not sure if I ever mentioned this in an interview or anything, but when I was younger watching pro wrestling, I was watching Hardcore Homecoming. It was a ECW reunion pay per view, and I think it was the third or fourth match on the card was Kid Cash versus Too Cold Scorpio. And timeline wise, this is 2005 and Too Cold Scorpio was the GHC heavyweight tag team champion, and he actually came out to the ring with the title. And I said, one day, I don't know what made me say this as like I must have been 12 years old. As an 11 or 12-year-old kid, I said, I want to win that title one day. Like that will be the championship that I hold. I guess manifest destiny. And I told myself that I would win that title. So then finally, 2005, so almost 20 years later of me saying I want to win the GHC Tag Team Championship, I actually get to do it. Um, Insane, incredible. I put the title around my waist this past weekend in Nagano, and I remember going up to LJ and saying like, I don't care if I sound like a fan right now, but it still blows my mind that I get to wear this thing. And he's like, no, man, you deserve it. Like you've earned this. So I think that's really cool. So much so that I actually have a replica. I had a replica of the GHC tag title made, and it's in my trophy case back in the United States. Very quick turnaround if you think about it. So, yeah, it was a special night. I remember me and Jack right before we went out there, we had like a nice moment before we hit the curtain. And then after the fact, I sent a selfie that no one has seen other than my mom. And I sent her a picture of me holding the GHC title. And she said, congratulations, but you've always been my champ. And that was a bit of a tearjerker.
Oh yeah. That's lump in the throat material. That's beautiful. But you're right. It's manifest destiny. It's what you do, how you act, how you behave, how you move forward, how you prepare yourself physically, mentally, how you learn, the people you speak to, the connections you make, and it's all of that coming together, and you did it, and it's really beautiful. It really is great story.
I also have to mention that it's so interesting that you and Jack are both from Scotland, but you say GHC and he says GHC. So
Yes. Yeah, there are regional differences in accents in Scotland, that's for sure. Now, you have both made two defenses, successful defenses of those belts so far. Kiyomiya and Oiwa, Inaba and Kitamiya. Tough defenses so far, and you have another one coming up.
yes, we do. Before I even mention them, I want to say like each title defense so far out of the two have been completely different styles of wrestling. I feel like Kiyomiya and Oiwa they brought like a more classic pro wrestling style, while Kitamiya and Inaba brought like a more like strong brute fighting style. And then we have this one coming up in Sendai on February 4th. We are wrestling Alpha Wolf and Dragon Bane. Completely different than anything Jack and I have ever been in the ring with in Pro Wrestling Noah in general. Lucha Libre, more a high flying junior heavyweight style. And I know you can say that, well, we've wrestled, Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr., but I feel like his style of lucha libre is a lot different than their style of lucha libre. And they're definitely going to be more aerial attack based, and more flying based. And we said it in our weekly pro wrestling uh, interview the other day that if they're going to hit us hard, we're just going to have to hit them harder. And if they're going to fly, we're going to have to catch them and throw them.
Yeah, well, those brothers, Los Golpeadores, Alpha Wolf and Dragonbane, they are known for upping the ante every time. And I know that you and Jack are not going to stop this. You're going to match them and up it one step further. So I'm really looking forward to that. February 4th in Sendai for your third title defense of the GHC Heavyweight Tag Team Championship title belts. Looking forward to that. AG, give us your socials. Where can we find you on the interwebs?
Oh, I'm on Instagram at the alternative AG. Oh yeah, there it is. That is also my YouTube channel as well. I just started vlogging from Japan. I think I want to, just draw back the curtain a little bit on what my everyday life is like here, what I do at the dojo or how I prepare for upcoming events. And then some of the sights I get to see along the way. I went to Todokan, a wrestling superstore, the other day and just completely filmed the entire place. And I even made like a purchase. So I got a WCW Nitro Grill Las Vegas denim button-up shirt. That was a mouthful. Um, but yeah, so I have this rule where I always have to leave with something. I always have to buy something, and it was quite the purchase for me. But I felt like it was calling my name. I saw it. I said, no, I don't need it. I put it back, and I kept gravitating back towards that damn T-shirt, and ended up purchasing it at the end of the day. That, and then also we have a pro wrestling tee store for Pro Wrestling Noah, which features not this hoodie, but we do have the why. What am I? This is difficult. It's mirror image here, so it's right here. The GLG logo on a black T-shirt, and you can customize it to a V-neck or a tank top, maybe even a long sleeve. And that, I believe, is the only way you can purchase a GLG shirt if you live in the 50 United States.
Get on it. Get on it. And yeah, anybody watching this who wants to see more of Anthony Greene outside of the ring, get on his YouTube. You just started that recently, right? I've had a look at it. It's really entertaining content. And give it a subscribe, a like, and a share, as well as the Kraken Chronicles, of course, on YouTube. And you can see Anthony Greene, the alternative AG, in Pro Wrestling Noah, of course, on the Wrestle Universe platform. Anthony, thank you very much for joining me today on Kraken Chronicles.